Velma, here by not very popular demand. I've watched the first 4 episodes and it's hateful. It comes across like it was written by someone that spent most of their time in high school sobbing while trying to get out of whatever locker they'd been stuffed into. It has that same "I'll show you" mentality, while completely submerged in self-pity. It comes in hard with the She-Hulk energy, even including the twerking. But it taught me things. Until I watched this, I thought that the worst thing that could happen to the Scooby-Doo franchise was Scrappy-Doo, but boy did they show me. The show is currently sitting on a 0.4 out of 10 on Metacritic, and if anything, that's overly generous. It's a show again, seemingly made for no one. So yes, it's very much like She-Hulk, right down to the flat, self-referential humour and fourth wall breaking. Its primary features are arrogance, hatred, envy and deep insecurity. I'm just going to do a quick strafing of the show because I don't want to watch it. I'm going to keep this to a quick under 10-minute video if I can and leave it at that, unless this review gets over 3,000 views. Maybe then I'll review the whole series. So what is Velma? It's a Scooby-Doo spin-off coming from HBO, and this is the same network that put out The Wire and Game of Thrones, and now they've been reduced to Velma. I'll just let that sink in. I'd advise against watching Velma altogether. Watch Game of Thrones instead, or maybe the Jon Bernthal Punisher. Much like the Rings of Power, the makers describe it as a respectful reweaving, a reimagining of the IP. Scooby-Doo in contrast was charming and innocent, campy, but ultimately harmless, with a consistent do-gooder message. Most episodes the gang would help or save a town, so prepare yourselves as the creatives of Velma defile Scooby-Doo and make it hateful and vile, and stupid. Really, really stupid. Velma is an extremely unlikable female Hollywood protagonist in a now very long line of pathologically unlikable female protagonists. As background research, I went back and watched some of the original run of Scooby-Doo, and honestly, do that instead of watching this. It's filled with good messages of friendship, civic responsibility, it was very unviolent, chase Stephen. Velma as a series in comparison feels like watching something wholesome be degraded. This is Daphne from Scooby-Doo, and this is what they did to her in Velma. What Velma has done for Scooby-Doo feels like what Chris Chan did to Sonic the Hedgehog. Early in episode 1, Velma breaks up a fight in the women's shower where Daphne is trying to drown some girl in a puddle with a sadistic look on her face for disagreeing about TV, and Velma asks Daphne,
"And how do you feel about race-blind casting, Daphne?"
Well, as an Asian woman, I think it's cool. Everyone loves it when white people play Jesus or a professional boxer. Why can't it ever go the other way, right?
The writers think that there's no such thing as a white professional boxer. Allow me to introduce you to Tyson Fury, the current WBC title holder. Or Alexander Usyk, the current WBA, IBF and WBO heavyweight champion. Also, thank heavens we have these complete morons to tell us what ethnicity Jesus was, assuming Jesus even existed. The only description we seem to have from the Bible is from Revelations, and that was a vision where Jesus apparently had glowing eyes and emitted light like a Super Saiyan. It's Revelation 1:14 and 1:15. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So from that description, Jesus may actually be Gad Sad. The show Velma aims to tell the origin story of how Velma forms the Scooby Gang, and if this is going to be a prequel to the original cartoon, I'm curious how the show is going to explain how 3 members of the gang are going to become transracial with completely different personalities. Maybe that came for free with the Mystery Machine. Velma is on the case of a murderer taking the brains of hot female students in her school. The show doesn't have a single likeable character in it. Velma herself is horrible. She's an outcast in her school and is treated badly by almost everybody. And she treats them badly too. Then there is Norville, and I don't know if this is even supposed to be Shaggy. It has his name and that's about it. Norville treats Velma far nicer than she deserves because he's in love with her. And she treats him just as badly as she treats everyone else. The one person who's kind to her, she uses and abuses. Velma's mother disappeared years ago. People think that she ran away after going out to buy a Christmas present for Velma, which makes no sense on any level, because they find her car abandoned with the present for Velma still in it. So what? She decided to run away and leave her family, but chose to leave her car and walk, did she? Velma still has the present to this day, unopened after many years, despite it probably containing a clue to where her mother went. So it makes no sense in the story, but I can only presume they need that present for a plot device for later. Daphne is now Asian, and although she was sweet in the original series, she's now a bullying dealer who knows martial arts. She must know how to do a leg sweep, right? I mean, she's Asian after all. She's also now bi-curious and awful. The show doesn't know how to treat Daphne's two adopted lesbian cop moms. On one hand, they're lesbians, and the show really likes that. On the other hand, they're cops. So they can just kneecap a teenager on the basis of no evidence when the mood takes them. The show has no such qualms about Fred though. The show's worst ire falls on Fred. He made the mistake of having the wrong skin colour. So the show goes in relentlessly and sadistically on Fred, and white people in general. He's now so stupid and spoiled that he needs his food cutting up for him, and the show takes great pleasure in his pain and humiliation. In episode 1, Velma suspects that Fred is the murderer on the basis of nothing. Fred apparently likes privacy when he's in the bathroom, so in her logic, the dead girl must have photographed him and he got angry and attacked her. That's genuinely the logic that they go with. When asked why Fred would do this, Velma responds, "If I were a rich white dude, I would kill everyone just to get away with it." So Velma breaks into Fred's house and he starts acting suspiciously when he catches her. And he says he'll deal with Velma in the same way that he dealt with the dead girl, at which point the two lesbian cops burst in and shoot him through the legs, a thing that the show plays for laughs, and Fred gets arrested and sent to jail for murder. Velma breaks into his house, the cops come in with no warrant, shoot him in the legs, an unarmed man, and then they arrest him on the basis of no evidence. If he wasn't rich before, he would be after he successfully sued the police. Next episode, Velma says that Fred must be guilty because he's a rich white guy with a tiny Johnson. He must have done it. I'm going to read a section from an article in The Atlantic about Velma. The creator, Charlie Grandy, argued that the writer's alterations, including excising Scooby from the gang, reimagining Velma as a misanthropic South Asian teenager, and incorporating grotesque gags, felt authentic to the spirit of the original series. "We wanted to be respectful," he explained. "We didn't want to just kind of take these beloved characters and put them in outrageous or gross situations and say, 'Isn't it crazy you did that to Velma?' Mission failed, because that's exactly what you did. You had Daphne, undressed, trying to drown someone in a shower in episode 1. You had Velma eating fries out of a dumpster. There is nothing of the original characters here, and watching it made me feel like I needed a shower. I felt dirty after watching this show. What they have done here feels like the show is burning Caucasian people in effigy. None of the show's humour lands for me. I smiled out of embarrassment maybe once in 4 episodes. The show lacks any kind of style, elan, charm, or even a point. It's hateful, mean-spirited, spiteful, frequently racist and also sexist. It's filled with prejudice and ill-founded opinion, all dressed up as snark, and it's thoroughly unpleasant.
Could you make me a cup of tea, please, Stephanie?